Mercury officially stations retrograde today, November 9th, and this is 3 weeks of chaos, especially the first week, along with a false start included. And we've been feeling that whiff of retrograde in the air since late October. There's been a lot of disorganization. There was those systems crashing back then when Mercury entered its pre-shadow. Well, today is the moment that this detriment foot and mouth energy for Mercury and Sag is at its loudest. Mercury stops and turns back at 6 Sagittarius, and this lasts until November 29th when Mercury stations direct around 20 Scorpio. So if you have placements at the very end of fixed signs or at the very beginning of mutable signs, you're definitely going to feel this one. I mean, yeah, that's most people. This is a big one. And you'll notice that Thanksgiving doesn't escape its wrath. It does look like the government shutdown is going to bring some chaos into Thanksgiving travel plans. And in Sag, Mercury is ruled by Jupiter in Cancer, who also just stationed retrograde on November 7th. But in Sag, Mercury is probably going to have a lot to do. So this is it's not like a retrograde where you don't have anything to do. It's more like you probably said yes to too much. Now, retrogrades are going to bring up unfinished business and people and things from our past. They're going to have us revisit and review. This can be very literal. For example, musicians may find themselves recording songs that they already wrote some time ago during a retrograde, revisiting old material. Now, at first, things are super disorganized in Sag. I mean, there's just a little bit more difficulty. It'll be really chaotic. It'll be really loud between November 9th and November 19th. November 19th, Mercury gets pulled back into Scorpio, cooling off the fires of Sag in the deep waters here. So that loud, big picture Sagittarian thinking is actually cooling off for the moment, and we're looking at a more investigative phase. That retreat is the real work here because the Sagittarian impulse is just going to be keep pushing the big idea no matter what. This retrograde is a direct confrontation with that kind of pride. We do have to listen to what the world is saying us. We do have to adapt our plans at times, right? There's this sort of demand to stop talking so much, to stop being so busy as we get deeper into November. Observe and look deep and find that one core truth that really changes things going forward for you. Scorpio is a fixed sign, so it's focusing on one big thing as opposed to multiples. Now, insight comes basically the next day because November 20th, we have the Mercury-Sun cazimi. This is the absolute heart of the retrograde when light is shed on the matter. Usually, things are just sort of resolved and moved a little bit smoother. Now you know what's going on. Now you know what's happening. Now you know what the retrograde is about. So there's confusion, and then there's a moment of profound clarity here. Definitely that big light bulb moment that leads to your version 2.0. Then on November 7th, Mercury, with this new insight from that cazimi, is meeting up with Venus. I see this as your chance to start networking, to take this new realization and ask, what is valuable about this and who do I need to connect with for it? The whole process is finally culminating at the end of the month because Saturn stations direct on November 28th and Mercury on November 29th. I mean, you will be able to practically hear the groaning of these massive ships, with Saturn, turning around in the sea. It's slow, it's huge. It takes weeks for that guy to start moving again. Mercury only a few days, thankfully. So a slow, steady return of forward movement. I'm not saying to expect a burst of speed here, just some relief, finally I'm making some progress. So this entire story finally wraps up by December 16th. That's when Mercury clears its post-shadow, sort of wrapping up this storyline. That's when you're finally allowed to move forward with a plan that's been thoroughly transformed in the waters of Scorpio, empowered in the process.